Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Just finished putting an FPV system into my Bugs 3, including the 1200 TVL camera, Wolf Whoop transmitter, antenna coming out, custom install on the antenna. Stay tuned and we'll show you how I did it. So this one should be pretty easy, not too complicated. So what we're going to do is start by taking the top cover off. So we're just going to pop the battery in. And what the Bugs 3 has here is it has this big LED headlight, but the housing of it looks like it could fit a camera. So what I was thinking, what the heck, let's pop that lens out, let's take the LED out, let's use this whole bracket and mount and stick an FPV camera in there. And then hopefully the idea is to use this current power source to power up the transmitter. So that's what we're going to work towards, and we're going to see if this is going to work for us. If it does, heck yeah, it works. But I'm thinking this will probably be overall cheaper than buying the actual the stock FPV camera system that you can buy for this drone. So let's start by pulling the plug there. Battery's unplugged. We're going to unscrew the two screws that hold this LED in, and that's all we should need to do for removing screws, is just these two. So get that out of the way, and now we'll get that Bugs out of the way. Looking at this bracket here, we need to remove that lens and remove the LED that's inside. So if we're looking from the back side, there was a little bit of glue back there, but all we have to do is there's two little clear tabs. And we're just going to take those tabs, take our screwdriver, and just manipulate them out of place. And it should pop that lens right out. There we go. So lens is out, LED pops out. Now we're left with the mount itself. So now we have to modify this bracket to accept the camera. So let me show you what the camera is here. We're using the mini FPV camera. I'll throw a link in the description on what this thing is. And it's the 1200 TVL model, that is. So this guy's a little bit bigger than the one I put into my Bolt B. We're going to want to start by taking that lens right off. Nothing's going to be hacked apart here. We just got to drill out that housing to accept the FPV lens coming through it, and hopefully be able to screw the camera in from the other side. So just to mount it in through there. So, but we got to clear out all that plastic. So I currently didn't have my Dremel with me for this. I've left it at work. So we're going to use what we got. We've got their step-up bit. We'll get the drill out, and it should be enough to get her out. It's going to go slow. We don't want to break this housing. I would suggest probably the best way to get that excess plastic out to start with would be with the Dremel. But we work with what we got. So I don't want to break this. If it gets broken, then this housing's no good, and I'll have to order another one in to continue this project. Just going slow. Take your time. Once you get all that cleared out, that lens pops right in. Perfect. So now we've got to check to see if this camera is actually going to have enough depth there to screw into the lens. And we loving the way it looks right now. It's really stock looking, and that's what I'm going for. So like I said, we're going to have to see if it's going to screw in here. We're grabbing our camera, putting it in from the back side, and No, unfortunately there's not enough thread to grab there, so it's alright. We're just going to mod that housing to allow that lens to have enough room to screw in. So here's the plan. We're going to snip off basically about 3/16 of that front edge, just that first section to where you see the ribbed lines starting there. So we're just using side cutters, snipping it off. It's thin plastic, it's not a big deal. And after we snip it off there, we'll sand it all flush. And like I said, this is about 3/16 of an inch. So we're not going overkill here, don't need to. So once you're done cutting, like I said, I just taken some 80 grit sandpaper and we're just cleaning it up, flushing it up. And once you're done that, now we've got everything set. We're going to try this camera again. There we go, lens fits in, all flat. We're bringing that camera in from the back side now. I'm just going to put the lens out somewhere safe right now, but what we're going to do is, the microphone is getting in the way a little bit. We're just going to bend it out of the way a bit there. Alright, so now we're sticking that camera in from the back side, and now we're going to make sure that lens is actually going to screw into it. There's going to be nothing permanently mounted until we're focused, and then we'll glue that camera into place. So we've got lots of grab now, so we're able to secure that lens nicely. So there we go, guys. That's camera's mounted. Like I said, we haven't glued anything in. We still have to focus the lens, and then after we're done focusing, then we'll hot glue it into place. So now we've got to figure out how we're going to actually mount the transmitter in there. Camera's done. Here, let's show you what the camera's going to look like here. There's no turning back now. The LED cannot be mounted again. Camera slips down. There we go. Boom. Camera's in. It's going to look great. Looks stock. Looks like it was meant to be there. Lots of room within that housing to mount this transmitter. So we're gonna, this is basically personal preference where we mount this. What I'm looking at, originally I was looking at going down into that void down there. We're just showing the transmitter here. We got the 40 channel Wolf Whoop. Goes from 25 milliwatt up to 500 milliwatt. 500 milliwatts on a 12 volt power source though. And it does state it needs a 7 volt power source in the manual, which later we find out in this video is not exactly true. So this is the connectors they give us within the kit. What we're going to do here is we're looking at the camera plug to see if it was compatible with the board, but it's not. So we're going to be snipping and soldering, but that's okay. We're going to make this a permanent mount anyway, so we don't want this thing to be coming out, this transmitter, this camera. The end plan is for it not to come out. So now we're looking at where we're going to mount this thing. I'm looking at putting it right up here on the top. And I like the way it looks, but I think I decided we're going to flip this around and we'll be mounting it like that. That is going to be our final mounting spot. There are options. You can mount it wherever you want. So we're looking at the transmitter here now. This is a close-up look. We got our power, our ground for the transmitter, video, ground, and our 5 volt outlet for the camera. So you don't have to worry about regulating your voltage or anything. This transmitter regulates the voltage for you, so you get your 5 volt typical for FPV camera. So we're starting to prep our wires here. We're going to start by snipping the plug off of the camera. We're just going to determine what we want for length. We got lots of room, so we don't need to be tight on our wires. We can leave some excess length. So I've determined right there that's what I'm going to work with. I always hold on to these little plugs. They come in handy for something else always. So now we're going to have to take our transmitter wires and we're going to snip the plug off those. So our positive and negative there have the JST connection on. We're not going to be using that. So we're going to be snipping all wires off that transmitter and hardwiring them. So right there we've got our power, ground, our video, and our white wire is our audio. And on the transmitter we've got the same black, red, and yellow, but for the audio it's green. And right there we're looking at our transmitter, and I'm just pointing out here that the green is our audio. So we're snipping it, giving ourselves, we're keeping that connector for something else in the future too. So right here we're just prepping everything, and then everything's just getting hardwired, soldered. Always have some shrink tube on hand too. As you can see, I've run the shrink tube over top. Right now we're just getting some solder on those wires, making the connections. And I think maybe I need to get myself a soldering station because I'm getting mighty close to my hands there. So heat guns at work as well, so we stole my wife's Braun hair dryer and we're just putting some heat to those shrink tubes so that we can carry on with the project here. So all our final connections are made there. We're ready to plug it in now. So ideally we were going to be plugging that into the LED power. That LED power was giving us 8 volts when I put the multimeter to it. So we're plugging it into the LED plug right now. That was giving us 8 volts off of the multimeter, but unfortunately, as you're going to see later in the video, we had to change plans because it was being pretty temperamental with the transmitter. So we're getting our transmitter plugged in here. Perfect, we got plugged in. We're going to put our antenna on before we power up here. This kit did not come with the actual antenna, so I had one lying around, 5.8 gigahertz antenna. So I'm just making sure everything's going to work here right now. What we're going to do is later on in the video we're actually going to be moving this power supply over to the left to the camera plug for the stock cameras. We've powered up here, everything's working, transmitter's powered up. So now we've got my our receiver here, and we're just going to make sure that that transmitter is actually putting out a signal and the camera's working. We're not focused yet. We're locked onto our channel. We've got a good solid connection. So bangarang right there, guys. We're going to focus this guy up, and just need to focus it by unscrewing it or screwing it in a bit. That's all. There we go, we're getting quite a bit better there, we're looking a lot better. And I'm pretty happy with that, it's looking good. There we go. It's hard to see, but it's looking pretty good there. So we're going to power everything off right now, and we're going to get our camera set. We're giving a little dab of hot glue there just to start with, and then we're just going to let that dry, and then we're going to drop that camera back into place. So what we're going to start looking at here now is where we're going to run this antenna. I'm just going to get these screws for the camera back in. We don't need to take the camera out again. That's done. So I've got this nice little multi-driver here that I use specifically for my drone stuff. This is my main go-to. Carries all the bits, a little general multi-driver there. Made in the USA. So 2 screws, get that mounting bracket back in, and then once we're done there, we're going to focus our attention on getting the antenna mounted now. So we're going to take the camera off. I shouldn't have had that on to begin with. We need to pull the leg right now, and what the plan is your leg on your Bugs 3 has 2 screws, and then it has a center post that drops in. We need to, for this system, what I need to do is, originally I was going to run it through the antenna hole there, but it doesn't work. I can't shut the lid. So what I'm doing right now is I'm drilling out that center post, and I also drilled it out on the leg, and I actually have to mount, right now we have to mount our antenna from the bottom. So right now I'm just basically giving this countersink so that the antenna body can drop in a bit more, so the leg will slit flush. I don't think I'm compromising the strength here at all. Doesn't seem to be any issues. I've flown this thing a few times now and it's been fine. So we're going to run our antenna through there, through the bottom, like so, and then we're going to mount our leg over top. See, I've drilled the leg out to fit over top the antenna already, and then we've got 2 screws to put in to hold the leg back in. This may not be the right way. I think what maybe I needed to have was the actual connector to the transmitter that was on a 90. Then I would have been able, most likely, to shut the lid on the Bugs. But I didn't have that. I was in the middle of the project, so we just kept going, made it work. So to secure that antenna, 8mm driver. Get that in there nice and tight. There we go, guys. So that is in place now. The leg's solid. It's perfect. It's going nowhere. And what this will do is will give me enough clearance on the top to actually shut the lid of the Bugs, to shut the top cover. Okay, so this is everything in place. I'm just pointing out here I was having some problems, like I mentioned earlier. It wasn't always working, so I moved it over to the camera port. And it's basically what it is your positive is on the far left of that, and your negative is in the center pin. The right pin is unused, but it's only pulling 5 volts. And in the manual it said we need 7 volts, but it powers the board every time. I have this set on 500 milliwatts right now and no issues. I've flown it, I've tested it, I've had it in the air probably for an hour total now with no issues, hasn't failed. So we're going to continue with this. That transmitter does get really hot, so I have it sitting where it's sitting and it's staying in place. I did have some hot glue underneath it, but the hot glue does not stick. It melts it. But there we're looking, the FPV is working. We're running 5 volts directly to the transmitter, and yeah, what can I say, guys? We ran in some roadblocks on the way here, so everything's powered on. We're just making sure that the drone is still working and that there's no problems with communication. And just looking, the VR goggles there, my Eachine VR goggles are working. We have FPV. So we're just pulling power here, and we're just putting it back in to make sure the transmitter actually powers back on with no issues. And we plug it back in, and right away. Really had a great time doing this project, and I'm glad I could share what I've done with you guys here. We just finished putting the mini FPV 1200 TVL camera into the Bugs 3 here, along with the Wolfwhoop 40 channel transmitter. Got her all in here. Everything looks stock. We had to use, like I mentioned in the video, we had to use the camera port. I was originally going to use the LED port. That's one of the problems we had to run through. The other problem we had to run through wasn't really a problem. We had to figure out a way to get that antenna in there. That antenna now is coming right through the middle of the leg, and it's sandwiched between the body and the leg unfortunately, if I would have had maybe the proper connector where it was a 90-degree angle coming out of there, I could have come up a little higher with it. But what was happening is we were not able to shut the body of the Bugs. There was a lot of pressure on the front here and it was holding the edge up, which I couldn't have. So, you know, we had to think on our feet there, make it work. It works. That leg is solid. It is actually almost got less flex now than the other legs. But yeah, everything fits, everything works. I've had this thing up in the air for probably an hour total now with no issues. We've got the transmitter in there. Originally we had it, a little bit of hot glue under it. It does not stick. That transmitter gets too hot, but it doesn't move. It stays where it needs to stay. So, hey, I really appreciate you guys checking this one out. Like I said, I had a great time making this one. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Leave me a comment. Subscribe. Like the video. Really appreciate all the support, and we'll see you guys on the next one. See ya!